Travers, ABC News, White House correspondent. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning.
So the White House has had 17 different reasons why they fired Comey all week. Is that right?
I mean, it might be more. We have a lot of lists right now. I'm a big list person, and the list of statements, the list of contradictions is pretty remarkable. I mean, here, just to sum it up here, there's a headline right now on an Associated Press story that says, Trump contradicts White House on reasons for Comey firing. Trump contradicts White House, of which he's a part of. I mean, it's remarkable, and I think it shows you what a whirlwind 3.5 days it's been since the firing of James Comey. And it's something that the White House could have had a handle on if they had, the statements, their own statements have been contradicted by themselves, but then the president kind of throwing gasoline on all of this. And I should note that just a couple moments ago, the president tweeting, defending his staff, sort of, saying that as a very active president with lots of things happening, it is not possible for my surrogates to stand at the podium with perfect accuracy, because certainly some of the things that have been said at the briefing this week were later contradicted by something the president said or reporting that we've done in the coming days.
So you have that, but then he goes on with Lester Holt on NBC News and pours gasoline on the entire thing.
Yeah, the president, all week, the White House has been trying to separate the Russia investigation and the firing of James Comey. I mean, I was just rereading the initial statement from Tuesday night. The president, it says, informed Comey he had been terminated and removed from office, and he acted based on the clear recommendations from the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General. And those recommendations had everything to do with the Clinton email investigation, had nothing to do with Russia. Well, now the president himself in this interview says that when he fired Comey, he was thinking about the investigation. He said, when I decided to do it, I said to myself, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. And that's just remarkable, because the White House wants the Russia thing to not be the headline. They don't want to talk about the investigation. They don't want to have any impropriety that the president is making this decision about Comey based on an investigation that has to do with his White House and his associates. That said, the president made it very clear to Lester Holt in that interview. He said he wants the investigation to continue and he wants it done quickly.
James Comey and his surrogates are starting to get the word out from his camp, unnamed sources. This is interesting, and if you can watch the tea leaves, this is now a war of words between the two sides.
Yes, and right now, people close to Comey are saying he's showing restraint, especially after the showboater and grandstander comments from the president in that interview. Sources tell us that Comey was furious at the lack of respect that the White House showed in how he was fired. And there's a lot of simmering anger about the comments that the White House staff has used. Atrocities was a word used from the White House podium. We are told that at some point we should expect Comey to respond, but right now he was caught off guard. He's taking a bit of time collecting himself. How does he respond? Well, he was invited to testify before a Senate committee next week. Could he do an interview? Unclear, but I can't imagine that they let this go unaddressed, especially when you have the president out there saying that on 3 separate occasions he was told by Comey that he was not under investigation. Associates of Comey tell us that they're very skeptical that Comey would have said that because, of course, this investigation is ongoing. It would have been pretty inappropriate for him to clear the president in some ways.
Also reporting that Comey's people are saying that Donald Trump asked for blind loyalty.
Yes, we don't have that confirmed yet. There was a report that at one of the dinners, the president asked Jim Comey for loyalty, and that Comey demurred on that, saying that's just not what he does, but that he would be honest with him. The White House says that report is not true, and the president did not ask that.
Karen Travers, you've been around long enough to watch these scandals. Does this thing blow over in a day or two? Are we still talking about this 2, 3, 4 weeks from now?
Absolutely, we're going to be. And I think, it's the type of thing that if the White House had gotten a handle on it a little bit better, if they knew the president for weeks had been thinking about firing Jim Comey, you sit down, you have a game plan. Here are the reasons why. Here are the people that are going to go on television and talk about it. Here are the examples that we're going to point to. They didn't have any of that on Tuesday. I mean, this was complete chaos here at the White House after the announcement first came out. And that led to these statements that are now being being walked back, amended, completely negated by things that the White House staff and the president himself had said in subsequent days.
With this chaos going on, can they still move on healthcare fronts and infrastructure fronts and tax cuts?
Yes, in theory, and they want to keep doing that. The president this week has been mostly behind closed doors because he has a big foreign trip coming up next week. That's what we're told. He's been meeting with his national security advisor almost every day in preparation for the trip. But, some of the things that are interesting coming from Capitol Hill, if there was any inclination for Democrats to work with the White House, this is a perfect week where they can say, forget it. And that makes things a lot tougher. This also has not really gone over well with Republicans up there, too. And just the way it's all played out, I think certainly will make the president's agenda much more difficult. And, separate issue of sorts. It's going to be hard, I think, for lawmakers and everybody. What do you trust now? The president just said on Twitter that, his spokespeople can't always be accurate when they go to the podium. That's a really hard thing to imagine then. So when do you believe them and when do you not?
Karen Travers, I'm sure there's been 6 more stories while you've been talking to us for the last couple of minutes.
I'm afraid to look at my email.
Hey, thanks, Karen. Have a good weekend.
Good. Thanks.